Who's actually getting the most out of a 64GB DDR5 kit like this, and who would be better off putting their money elsewhere? If you're on the fence about splurging on high-speed memory, you probably wonder whether the performance boost justifies the price tag for everyday gaming, streaming, or content work. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In the next few minutes I'll walk through the real-world impact of the Corsair Vengeance RGB 64GB 232GB kit, point out the hidden trade-offs, and help you decide if it's worth that extra cash. First off, let's talk about why memory speed matters at all. DDR5 6400 MHz isn't just a flashy number, it translates into higher bandwidth, which can shave a few frames off demanding titles that push the CPU and GPU hard, and it can speed up large datasets when you're rendering video or running simulations. But the benefit isn't linear. If your primary use case is a 1080p or 1440p gaming rig with a mid-range GPU, you might never see a noticeable difference compared to a more modest 5600 MHz kit. The extra bandwidth shines when you're paired with a top-tier CPU that can actually feed the memory fast enough, such as Intel's 13th Gen Raptor Lake or AMD's Ryzen 7000 series. In those builds, the 6400 MHz rating can help keep the CPU from stalling on memory requests, which you'll notice as smoother frame times in open-world titles like Cyberpunk 2077 or Starfield. The capacity side of things is where the Vengeance RGB truly stands out. Two 32GB sticks give you 64GB of RAM, which is more than enough for virtually any gaming scenario, but it becomes essential for heavy multitasking, 4K video editing, or running multiple virtual machines. I've seen creators who run DaVinci Resolve, Photoshop, and a browser with dozens of tabs open simultaneously hit the 32GB ceiling pretty quickly. With 64GB, you can keep those applications resident in memory without the system resorting to swap files on your SSD, something that can cause stutters you might otherwise blame on the GPU. So if you're a streamer who also edits footage on the same machine, that extra headroom can be a real productivity boost. Now, who should skip this kit? If you're building a budget PC with an older platform that only supports DDR4, you'll need to upgrade the motherboard, which adds extra cost and complexity. Even on a DDR5 compatible board, you have to check the BIOS version. Some early 600 series chipsets needed a firmware update just to recognize 6400 MHz modules at their rated speed. Skipping that step can leave you stuck running the memory at a lower default frequency, negating the main selling point. Also, if you're primarily a casual gamer who never goes beyond 1080p, or you're using the machine for office work, the 64GB capacity is overkill and the price premium might be better spent on a better GPU or a faster SSD. On the practical side, the Vengeance RGB's aesthetics are hard to ignore. The integrated light bar syncs with most major RGB control software, Corsair's ICUE, Asus Aura, MSI Mystic Light, so you can match the memory to the rest of your build without extra controllers. In a showcase build, those lights add a visual cue that says high-end. But the RGB is purely cosmetic, it doesn't affect latency or stability. If you're building a silent, black box workstation, those LEDs might even be a distraction. Speaking of latency, the kit's CAS latency is CL32 at 6400 MHz, which is respectable for DDR5. In practical terms, that means the memory can retrieve data in 32 clock cycles. When you compare that to a lower-speed DDR5 kit with a tighter CL24, the difference is marginal for most applications because the overall bandwidth advantage of 6400 MHz outweighs the slightly higher latency. Real-world benchmarks show the gap narrowing when the CPU is able to keep the pipelines full, something you'll see most with high core count processors that can issue many memory requests per tick. Power draw is another subtle consideration. DDR5 runs at a lower base voltage than DDR4, but high-speed kits like this often need additional voltage boosts via the onboard voltage regulation module, VRM. In a typical gaming session, the memory's power consumption is a fraction of the GPU's draw, so you won't notice a bigger electricity bill. However, if you're running the system 24/7 for rendering or scientific workloads, that extra wattage can add up over months. It's not a deal breaker, but something to keep in mind if you're trying to keep the system as energy efficient as possible. Compatibility quirks can bite you if you don't plan ahead. The module uses a 288-pin DIMM form factor, which is standard for desktop RAM, but the taller heat spreader can interfere with some low-profile CPU coolers. I've seen builds where the cooler's fan clipped the memory side, leading to vibration and occasional thermal throttling. If your case has limited clearance or you're using a massive air cooler, double-check the clearance specs before ordering. Most modern ATX cases have enough room, but it's a simple step that saves a headache later. Another practical point, the kit.